right, welcome to episode 7 of the Pops and Drops podcast.
Hola.
And today we are going to visit a topic that we alluded to in an earlier episode.
We are?
Yeah.
What are we talking about?
We're talking about what it would be like if millennials ruled the world.
When? Or what? Or when?
You know?
Okay. So what do you think is going to happen? So do you want to discuss what would it be like if millennials ruled the world right now, or what is it going to be like when millennials inevitably rule the world?
Oh, that's a good point. Let's say if millennials were in charge right now, instead of the octogenarians that are running for president.
Yes. Well, what do you think would happen? What do you think?
No. You gotta. I'll react to you.
Why do you always put me in the hot seat? Why can't you talk?
Well,
you're what do you think is gonna.
Well, but you're the millennial. So if you and your generation were in charge, what would be different?
Well, the entire justice system would be reformed.
In what way?
Well, we already kind of touched on that. I think that the police, there needs to be better training. There needs to be defunded. There needs to be no more unions.
Back up
in the police.
Yeah, you said better trained and defunded.
Yes.
How do you get better training with less funding?
Because you shrink the police force.
Okay. So fewer police, more of the money spent on police, spent on training, less on personnel.
Correct.
Okay. What about in terms of justice system reform? Does that include the prison system?
Yes.
Okay. So how do you reform the prison system?
Decriminalizing marijuana throughout all 50 states and releasing all the people who have been arrested for minor marijuana charges.
Okay.
That's probably day one. That's something that needs to happen. It should happen. And I think they're already starting to do that in California now. So that is one thing that needs to happen. Taxes on large corporations like Amazon. They need to be paying taxes, and we need to seal up those loopholes that they keep getting out of.
Okay.
Taxes on, I think that there should be a 99% tax on any individual who has more than $1 billion. So anything over $1 billion should be taxed at 99%.
In income, if somebody is getting paid $1 billion?
Oh, if you have $1 billion in the bank, any dollar over $1 billion that you personally have should be taxed at 99%.
So in essence, you're going to chase all of the billionaires out of America.
I don't think that would happen.
What if you had?
Why does a person need more than $1 billion?
They don't.
Yeah, exactly.
But the fact that you think you can take the rest of it away from them and they aren't going to fight you over it, that doesn't make sense. If you're Jeff Bezos and you have $122 billion, you would rather give $121 billion in taxes to the federal government than
can you imagine
spend a few $1 million and buy a house in Switzerland and take your other $121 billion with you.
When the world is ruled by millennials and every millennial is in a position of power in every government and every government instills something like that.
Oh, okay. So what you're saying is unless there is a global agreement that billionaires are going to be taxed at 99%.
Yes. Then the only places they could really run are probably going to be like China and Russia.
And why wouldn't they?
I mean, because then you'd have to live in China or Russia.
Yeah, but if you have 100...
You'd have to live in like a communist country. or one run by Putin. But we're saying in this utopian future where millennials run everything, I don't think Putin will be around. So there will probably be reforms in Russia as well,
Okay.
and in China. I mean, in China, there's a large youth movement that will probably take over eventually. So they might even agree too. So
So,
like,
would there be any country on the globe where they would say, okay, billionaires, you can keep your money if you move here?
I mean, there probably will be if that's a thing, and they probably will run there. But I don't know. I just have faith in humanity, and I would hope that billionaires would rather just help the world versus being greedy bastards.
Okay, so,
No one needs $1 billion.
okay, well, there's two issues. First of all, the value of $1 billion, it's denominated in US dollars.
Uh huh.
Okay. What if there's hyperinflation? What if we talked about inflation last
Uh huh.
time? What if $1 billion today?
It's equivalent to a million.
No, I'm saying, what if $1 billion today would buy you 1,000 McLarens, but $1 billion under your program would only buy 4 McLarens? So it's still $1 billion. You're still trying to tax people with over $1 billion at 99%, but the $1 billion doesn't buy what it used to. So what do you do then? Do you raise the limit? Do you
Yeah,
just
you'd have to adjust it.
okay? So okay,
No one needs $1 billion.
what if $1 billion only buys 4 loaves of bread?
Well, that's a ridiculous statement.
Why? With hyperinflation? I mean, in Germany, in Weimar Germany before World War II, people had to have wheelbarrows full of cash to go to the store to buy anything.
Okay, that's just ridiculous. And you think
It's
that's the future?
reality. Well, I'm just
Do you
saying
think at any point in the future that $1 billion will only buy you a loaf of bread?
it's possible. The
Well, then everyone would be billionaires.
Yeah, with fiat currency, that's what we were talking about with the $5,000 UBI. You start giving people cash, it puts you on a path where things continuously get more expensive, and it shrinks the difference in the actual true value of wealth between the people that are in the 1/10 of 1% today and everybody else.
Yeah.
Over time, it shrinks it, but the way it shrinks it is by making cash worth less and less and less.
Okay.
So obviously, you wouldn't get to the point where $1 billion only bought a loaf of bread, but you're on that path. So inflation reduces the value of any fiat currency, any currency that's not based in precious metals or some real tangible product. Uh, if it's just if the only value of the dollar is based on the faith in the government
Yeah.
and the ability of the population of that country to actually pay the money and deliver value for that currency, the value of the currency itself shrinks to reflect the level of trust in the currency.
Okay.
Okay, so if you start taxing billionaires at 99% and there's some place for them to go and they just take all their money and they go to Luxembourg, then the value of the dollar, the US dollar, will shrink around the world because people are saying, oh, all the billionaires are going to Luxembourg. The American people, their value, the probability that they could pay back bonds is shrinking with all those billionaires fleeing. So we're not going to buy the bonds because we don't believe that they'll get paid back unless the Federal Reserve gives us some exorbitant interest rate. Like right now, the interest rates are essentially zero because the rest of the world looks to the U.S. dollar as their currency. I mean, everything's tagged to the dollar.
Yeah.
Well, when the dollar is no longer the world currency, then then it floats like everything else. and the only thing that it gives it value is the faith of the people who will buy bonds that those bonds will get paid back. Right?
Yeah.
We have the strongest military in the world. We have a big, vibrant economy. So people will have trust in the dollar. So right now we have essentially a 0% interest rate. When the U.S. government needs money, they can just sell bonds. They can essentially borrow money from other people,
Yeah.
and people will say, "Oh, I'm confident that if I buy a U.S. bond from the Fed, that will get paid back." If you
Okay.
make some policy change like taxing billionaires at 99% and all of that wealth leaves the country, then those other people who are going to buy bonds and lend the United States money are going to say, oh, wait a minute.
So that's
If
why.
you want to borrow money from me, I'm going to need like a 17 or 18% interest rate on that money because I don't think, there's a higher amount of risk that I'll never get my money back.
So that's why it would take a global agreement.
Yes. But it would only take one country. That's the game theory problem is you could have 99% of the country saying we're going to tax billionaires at 90%, and the one country that says no, come on billionaires, then all the billionaires are going to move to that country. Then overnight it becomes the wealthiest country in the world.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm just saying your idea that billionaires should do more or whatever is fine, but it's not practical. It can't happen because there's always going to be a country somewhere.
There's always going to be pieces of shit out there.
There's always going to be a country
Greedy
somewhere
people
who
out there.
who are going to operate based on laws of economics rather than based on some,
So
emotional.
greedy people.
Call it greedy, sure.
It is
whatever.
greedy. That's what greed is. It's
Okay.
valuing the dollar over people, which is exactly what that is. Is that not?
It's
Is it?
valuing. It's maybe valuing your own family over other people.
Greed.
Okay, call it what you will. Self-interest.
Greed.
Self-interest.
Okay. Self-interest is greed.
Okay, so the only way for your plan to work is for no one to be self-interested.
No, it's just going to take the global initiative by all the people in power to say, it's time that you give back. You stepped on the backs of everybody else to get to where you are. So now it's time to pay back.
Well, what makes you say they stepped on the... There's lots of people who made a lot of money by creating products that people wanted. They weren't necessarily stepping on anyone's back. They were just innovative and came up with all the things
Okay, so
that you depend
name
on.
one billionaire.
Steve Jobs.
Steve Jobs. Have you seen the way that he interacted with his people when he was alive? He was kind of an asshole. He denounced his daughter. He was not a good person. You got another billionaire?
So because of the way that he interacted with his employees
and his daughter.
That has nothing to do with the fact that everybody wants an iPhone.
Yeah, everybody does want an iPhone, but I'm not saying
And
Steve Jobs
everybody wants an iPhone because it's an innovative and useful product.
No, because it's cheap, and it's cheap for Apple to make in China, and they made it sexy in America. That's why everybody wants an iPhone.
That doesn't make... What do you mean made it sexy?
Did you not see the commercials? That's why iPhones are everywhere. It's sleek.
If it wasn't useful and it didn't contribute to people's personal productivity or entertainment, people would not pay $800 for it.
And it is made in China for like $1. Well, and the people who are making it, many of them commit suicide. They had to put nets around those companies in China because of how terrible it was. And the actual stuff that is put into an iPhone is minerals that are dug from the ground in Africa, and those people are paid even less.
Yes.
So iPhones are not good things. Apple is not a good company. Like, all of these things are not good, man. Okay. It's all consumerism.
Okay. So consumerism is the issue.
Yeah. It's a major issue. It's people. That's again. It's just people stepping on the backs of other people.
Steve, in creating the iPhone,
Uh-huh.
the thought process of Steve Jobs or any inventor
Yes.
is, what can I develop? What can I make that people will want?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's fine. But how that product is made matters.
Right.
Those products are built in China from minerals and materials that are harvested or dug out of the ground in Africa.
Okay.
And the
But,
people in Africa are paid like cents, and the people in China are paid dollars.
right. Well,
And Steve Jobs and Apple are making billions upon
okay.
billions of
Well,
dollars.
you know this. You know these facts, right?
Yes.
And your peers know these facts.
Yes. And I still have an iPhone.
And they still buy iPhones.
It's the world. I'm saying the world's fucked up.
Okay, so how does it change under Millenial Rule? If your millennial brothers and sisters are buying iPhones, knowing all of this, what makes you think the world would be any different?
Because we can instill policies that will help the world just a little bit. Not saying everything's going to change overnight, because there's no way it will. But we should still strive to make it better. No one's even striving right now. They just don't even care. You said it. We have the largest military in the world when we don't need one. The world does not, that we should not be at war. And it's not even war. We have war games. It's not, it's bullshit. There does not need to be soldiers anywhere. Why? Why do people need to fight? It's not like we're fighting over land anymore. Everyone has their own, everyone has countries, and everyone, we exchange things. We are trade partners with our enemies. Everybody's connected now with the internet. There's no point in having these massive militaries anywhere in the world. And that's where a large majority of the taxpayers' money goes towards, is towards the military, which does not need to exist. But it will take a global effort to shut down all the militaries throughout the world in order to stop that.
Right. A lot of the global stability that has led to the international trade agreements and the relatively peaceful life that people, at least in the United States, live is because that giant military is there. As soon as as soon as the military capabilities start to shrink and the reach goes away and essentially create a power vacuum.
It's not going to be a power vacuum. We have drones. There doesn't need to be people.
Okay, so you're saying keep the same level of ability to impose order on the world, only use technology instead of people.
Which is what we're already doing.
To some degree, we're definitely moving in that direction. Yes.
So why do we still have a massive military? Why do we still spend billions upon billions upon billions and trillions of dollars on a military?
Well,
why?
Essentially, that technology that you're talking about is more expensive.
Why is it more expensive? It shouldn't be more expensive. It's expensive because independent contractors set the rate. That's why it's expensive.
To a degree, the fact that it's a government contract and the amount of competition is very limited is why those things are expensive.
Yes.
Except that in order to be on the cutting edge of military technology,
there doesn't need to be a cutting edge anymore. That's what I'm saying.
Okay.
Why do we need better drones when we already have drones? Why do we need more precise missiles when missiles already do the job? Why do we need guns? Why do we need these things? We don't. The world can be a better place and a peaceful place. And if we ever want to actually get off of this planet, we have to unite. If we want to explore the solar system,
yeah,
Michia, whatever that guy's name is, you know what I'm talking about? What's his name?
Michio Kaku.
Yeah, Michio Kaku, or whatever. I apologize for brutalizing your name if you ever listen to this. You're a wonderful human being. He said that in order for us to actually leave and explore the solar system, we have to unite as a planet, and that is true. We can't be these separate entities that are constantly fighting and trying to outdo one another. We have to unite.
Yeah.
And in order to do that, there cannot be individual country militaries. And maybe it will cause maybe the only thing that will unite us is if aliens come down and we got to fight them. Like that might be the only thing that will bring the world together. I don't want that to happen, and I don't think aliens are bad. If they are out there, if they are listening, I don't think that they're bad, and I don't think that they would they would try to harm us, but that might be the only thing that's going to unite us is having a global threat. And we already have many global threats like global warming and the fact that there are tornadoes and tsunamis and fires and dust bowls and all of that stuff. We're already fighting against the environment, which we should be the money that is going towards the military should go towards things like renewable energy and and things that can make the world better.
Okay.
Like a speed rail system in the United States. We need That's another thing that we really need.
Why? What would speed rail do?
It would reduce the reliance on jet fuel, at least within the United States. If I could hop on a train in Portland and get down to LA in like 6 hours, or LA to Chicago, and Chicago to New York, like there needs to be bullet trains.
Bullet trains powered by electricity?
Yeah.
Electricity produced in power plants?
Or from solar panels or from wind turbines or from the
They're not they're insufficient to produce
now,
those
but if
levels
we
of
if we spent all the money that we're spending on the military on researching renewable energies,
yeah. Yeah. A new
there's actually energy everywhere in the air right now around us that we can tap into. We just don't know how to.
right.
So like there are ways.
Yeah. I mean definitely and I doubt that the military has not been researching that. I mean a lot of that money that goes towards the military goes towards research stuff.
Not towards renewable energy.
Well, it's a 0 point energy source. I'm sure they either have it already or they've been researching it. Because anything that would give this country an advantage over its perceived foes, the military throws money at.
Okay.
So, there is some.
So why would they, even if they discovered it, why would they reveal it when when maybe the Saudi oil money is what is preventing us from going to war with them in the first place?
Yeah.
Like they might already have that technology and they're like, but we don't want to screw those guys over because the second we release this, you know, we won't have those trade deals.
Well, the the U.S. has become energy independent with fracking technology, so we actually don't buy oil from Saudi Arabia anymore. What we do is we protect Saudi Arabia in exchange for them demanding that people who want to buy oil from them use US dollars. So that's one of the reasons why the dollar is used as the world currency, is because Saudi Arabia insists that if somebody wants to buy oil from them,
They
they
have
have
to
to
use
pay for it with US dollars, which means those countries have to have access to US dollars, which once a new energy source became available, I mean that's my concern, is that a 0 point energy technology, if we have it, uh, once it's revealed how it works, uh, then the advantage is gone.
yeah.
So then the U.S. dollar no longer is tied to Saudi oil because nobody needs Saudi oil anymore. Uh, so it's possible that the U.S. has 0 point energy technology, and they're keeping it under wraps because of the petrodollar problem, uh, which is unfortunate. But it's a conspiracy theory, I know. But if it was a conspiracy, that would be one of the justifications for doing it. But yeah, I mean, there's the whole military industrial complex has to have a perceived foe to justify its existence.
Yep.
Yeah. All right. So let's say under under Millenial Rule, the uh, the perceived threat of Russia and China and all those things go away because the millennials took over China, so they're not threatening. Um, and they took over Russia. Russia's not really threatening. It's just a big. I mean that Russia has like the economy of Texas. Russia is no longer a superpower.
Really?
Yeah.
I did not know that.
Yes.
With all the games that they're playing trying to cause a civil war here, I was not aware of that.
Well, that's all they've got left. So they're games that they play with with technology, trying to encourage Americans to fight with each other with their bots and everything on Twitter, um, is cheap. That's a very cheap way to keep America preoccupied, so that we aren't messing with them.
So
But
why is their economy so shitty then? Like why aren't they a
it's a very
threat?
good question. So one of the things that happened in Russia back in 1911 was this little thing called the Bolshevik Revolution. And then they were under a system of government called socialism for about 50 years. And under that system, they
I
didn't,
thought they were communists.
they, no. So Marx and Engels, communism was the utopian end state. So they said that capitalism moves to socialism, and then eventually socialism becomes communism. That was the progression that they envisioned. And no one's ever reached communism because socialism always fails. Literally, it always fails. China had a revolution. They went into the socialist stage, and when they got towards the end of socialism, the only way that they figured that they could compete and keep up with the rest of the world was to go back to capitalism. So China went, revolution, socialism, back to capitalism. And Russia essentially did the same thing. Russia went socialism, imperial socialism, where they were basically annexing other countries, and eventually the whole thing fell apart. The reason it falls apart is because when you take away individuals' incentives to perform, they don't. So if you say, okay, we're under socialism now to protect, to further the utopian vision of the mother country, you are going to work in a brick factory and you're going to get this much food and you're going to get this apartment, and you go to work in the brick factory and you're working next to somebody who's also working in the brick factory, and you're all gung-ho because you believe in socialism and you believe in the ultimate goal of communism, so you're happy-go-lucky and you're working hard, and the guy next to you never does any work. He's takes 7 breaks a day to smoke a cigarette and drink a vodka, and he gets the exact same pay that you get. He gets the same apartment, or maybe even a nicer apartment, because he knows somebody in the Communist Party. And you're going, wait a minute, I'm busting my butt to make bricks, and this guy's a jerk off and he's not doing anything, but he has a better life than me. Something's wrong with his picture.
That sounds like something that would have happened before the invention of the internet.
What does the internet have to do with workers in a socialist country?
Because workers in a socialist country with a phone that can record that dude taking a break can report it to their supervisors. And then the world would be like, okay, well, that's not
Right?
right.
You don't need the internet to do that.
Yeah, you do. You need proof.
In Russia, the people spied on each other all the time, and they reported people like that to their managers, and the manager said, yeah, but his brother is this guy and he knows the party chair, so there's nothing we can do about it.
Yeah, because they didn't have Twitter. And instead of reporting it to the world, they reported it to the guy.
Okay, what would have happened in Russia if you had recorded that and put it on Twitter and reported it to the world is his brother-in-law, who was the local chair of the Communist Party, would have come and visited you that night and broke your kneecaps.
And you don't think that happened before? You think that? And then when the brother came to the door and they had the camera and they were live streaming, you think that kind of thing would continue to happen?
Yeah.
No, it wouldn't. It would stop. Just like how police violence is slowing down and stopping now that everyone is reporting it. The world can be a better place, man.
If you lived in a socialist country, what makes you think the government would have issued you a cell phone with a camera?
Because they wouldn't. I'm saying now. I'm not saying Like I said, that sounded like something that would happen back before the internet, back before everyone was connected, back before everyone saw everything, back before everything is live. In this millennial utopian future where and I'm not advocating for full on socialism. Capitalism has to exist in some form. You can't have a fully socialist world. It doesn't work. It works on paper, but it doesn't work because you are right. People do need motivation. There does need to be motivation to climb. However, the basic needs of humans need to be taken into account, and that those are the socialist ideals that need to be instilled in a country. So you need a roof over your head, you need medicine, you need healthcare, you need roads, and you need protection, and you need food.
Yeah.
If everyone had basic needs met, and could still strive. That's what we need. And there will be people, like people right now, a ton of people take advantage of the systems that we have in place right now. There's a lot of people who rely on welfare, but a lot of them can't do other things because they have mental blocks, or they just can't, they just can't function in society. They can't get a job. And we need to take care of those people. That's what I'm saying.
Okay.
That's what I'm advocating for. And that's what most millennials are advocating for. It's like, let's just take care of the people who can't take care of themselves. And that's not a bad thing.
Oh, right. Okay.
But in a full on capitalist society where we're like, screw everybody, I wanna just get ahead and crush everybody. That's why the world is in shambles right now. It's because it's run by people who think that way. Because there's no one in power right now who got to power without crushing other people. No one. Except for Bernie, but Bernie isn't even in power.
Well, there's two different things. You're commingling political power with economic power. So you're saying nobody who has $1 billion got there without crushing other people?
Yeah, I don't think there's no one. Yeah. Can you name one billionaire who's a good guy?
I don't know very many billionaires. Lots of them probably aren't in the news because they're not nihilistic egomaniacs and they just make their money. I mean, Warren Buffett. There's
Warren
one.
Warren Buffett?
Yeah.
You don't think Warren Buffett ever screwed anybody?
Well, probably by your definition of screwing somebody, but Warren Buffett just invested in companies that made good products.
And what were the companies? See, you got to
Berkshire
research
Hathaway's got all kinds of companies, got thousands, insurance companies, auto retailers.
insurance companies. Okay,
I mean,
that screw over people.
well, your definition of screwing over people is making a profit.
No, it's not. It's making a profit at the expense of other people.
What does that mean? How do you at the expense of the people who buy your product?
At the expense of people who manufacture the product?
Okay, so you've got a factory,
Uh-huh.
okay, that's going to manufacture things.
Yeah.
You have a couple of choices.
Uh-huh.
You can automate the factory with robots, employ nobody,
Yeah.
just have robots. You can hire people to build stuff.
Yeah.
And if you are going to go out and hire people to build stuff, then you're you're saying instead of paying qualified people, you go out to the world and you say, "Here's this job, and if you're qualified, we'd like to talk to you." So you talk to 100 qualified people,
Yep.
and you ask them what they want to make, or you offer them an amount of money,
Yep.
and two of the 100 say, "Yeah, I'll work for that." Is that screwing over the other 98 people?
No.
Okay, so it's okay to hire people at the market rate. Whatever somebody will take to do that job, if they're qualified, it's okay to hire them instead of somebody else who wanted more money.
If you are paying for their health care, and if you make sure that they aren't working too long of hours, and they receive breaks and they receive vacations.
All of those things are legislated. Like there's rules. They have to have breaks, they have to have vacation time. All that stuff is in the in the equal opportunity employment and rules of the game. But even if
But it
they
doesn't get followed.
weren't, yeah, it does. Even if they weren't,
No, it doesn't.
what do you mean?
I have worked for companies where my breaks were not where they should have been. I have worked for companies where I got screwed over and my health care wasn't covered. I've worked,
Well, when you say your health care wasn't covered, what does that mean? I mean, they didn't offer health care.
yeah.
Okay. Well, so if I'm an employer and I'm hiring 100 people
Uh huh.
and I say, this is what we do. We pay this amount of money. You're responsible for your own health care. We have these breaks. You'll get 2 weeks worth of vacation a year. Do you want this job for this amount of money? If you say yes, then you get the job. If you say no, you don't. And only one out of the 100 people says, okay, yes, I'll work for this company doing this job and not and have to buy my own insurance and I'm okay with those breaks. Is that okay?
I mean, I don't think it's right
Why is it not right?
because I think that every company should provide. I don't even think that companies should be forced to provide healthcare. In all honesty, I think that it needs to just be covered by the taxes that we pay. I think that's a basic human right.
Okay.
If you get sick, you should not be indebted for the rest of your life because of it, which is what is currently happening.
Right. And one of the reasons why healthcare is so expensive is because there is a thing called health insurance. If there was no health insurance for anybody, and in order for doctors and hospitals to make money, they could only charge what the market would bear, then it wouldn't be this expensive.
Yeah, so the health insurers are the ones to blame.
Well, the government that mandates health insurance are the ones to blame. If there was no health insurance would not be as expensive. It would be much cheaper, would have been much, much cheaper to have a program where uh, billionaires, millionaires contributed to some fund to help cover the healthcare costs of of the indigent population. So the people that absolutely could not afford healthcare, there would be a way for hospitals to apply to cover the cost of serving the people who couldn't afford to pay. And even that would tend to push the price of healthcare up. But that's we talked before about student loans and how that drove up the cost of higher education. The same thing applies in the healthcare space. Now, one of the things that happens with all that money floating around is pharmaceutical companies develop all kinds of whacked out weird drugs that, the 4 or 5 people that get some disease that would otherwise die now have an option, and um, and all kinds of medical equipment and advances. So, in if you go and look at countries that have socialized medicine, um, or socialist countries that have this where the government provides health care, um, the equipment that the hospitals have is old and outdated. So they're working with older. They never have the latest greatest technology. So that's one of the reasons why healthcare outcomes in the United States are better. It's because there's all this money in healthcare in this country, and so people figure out ways to spend it, like by developing cool new MRIs and these giant machines that shoot radiation to treat cancer with 360-degree axes, where the little uh, diodes and microbes and guns essentially that shoot the radiation can rotate all around your body, and they can do computer mapping of where the tumor is. All that latest and greatest medical technology comes from the United States because this is where all the money is in healthcare. So we develop the technology, and then other countries, once we've spent all the money to develop it, they can then buy it. But if there was no free market, essentially, if the United States healthcare system wasn't spending hundreds of billions or trillions, however much it is, on healthcare every year, then that equipment wouldn't get developed, and so the rest of the world wouldn't be benefiting from that.
So if those people who are developing that equipment receive that money from the government versus from the people, you think that that would somehow make them stop innovating?
Well, the issue is the government wouldn't. If the government would do that, then that kind of equipment would be getting developed in socialist countries or countries with socialized medicine, and it just isn't because money going into the government.
Goes to the military, doesn't go to healthcare.
Sure,
So,
right. It goes to different priorities.
so I'm saying we just need to reorder our priorities.
Okay, yeah. The only thing about the outlook that you bring to the table is that it's a little bit naive about the behavior of other countries. So, like you said, you'd have to have a global consensus that we're going to prioritize healthcare or space travel or
We're just
whatever.
going to prioritize people over money. That's the difference
Okay.
at the root.
So, right. So, how do you in terms of a government, in terms of the, the prioritization of government programs? How do you get to a point where you're prioritizing people over money? And how, when you say prioritizing people over money, how, what's your example of a US government priority that does that?
The fire department prioritizes people over money.
Okay. Well, that's a local government issue. And for the most part, local governments do. And one of the reasons why local
So, in during 9/11, when all those firefighters rushed to New York, that was all just local government. I'm pretty sure that was everybody. People, firefighters from Virginia, from other states.
yeah,
So, it's not.
I'm just saying that fire departments are often volunteer and they're always a service provided by a municipal or a county government. It's not. There's no such thing as the state fire department or the federal fire department.
There isn't?
Well, there's
I
fire.
mean, because I'm pretty sure when we just got done with a giant fire here, and there were people staying at our hotel who were from state-run agencies.
Well, those are there's people that, because all of the actual firefighters are coming from local governments, they have regional coordinators. So they have people that are help manage and coordinate all those efforts.
Uh-huh.
But the fire departments are local.
Okay.
Fire departments are local.
Isn't everything?
What do you know? The U.S. Army is not local. The Air Force is not local. So in the United States, you've got the federal government, and you've got state governments, and you've got some regional governments. So you've got some governments that are organized among a set of counties, like metro.
Uh-huh.
Often those things are organized to do build an airport or do mass transit across multiple counties
Yeah.
in a metropolitan service area. Then you've got the individual county governments, you've got city government, and then you've got HOAs, which are neighborhood governments. So you've
Yeah.
got all these different levels of government, from the HOA all the way up to the federal government. And then above the federal government, you've got the United Nations. So wherever you're standing on the ground, where if you live in the United States and you're out in the middle of the desert in Nevada, in an unincorporated area, you still have the county government, the state government, federal government, and the United Nations. So you're within the jurisdiction of four different governments, where at a minimum, wherever you are. And then if you're in a city that also has a metro like Portland, then you've got your city government, your county government, your metro government, your state government, the federal government, and the United Nations. So now you've got seven governments that are governing what you do where you stand.
Uh-huh.
Now, the one thing that is always true is the further away you get from you as an individual, the less accountability there is. So if you have an HOA with 100 houses in it and you know, four members of the HOA, the president, the vice president, the treasurer, and an at-large or whatever. Usually HOAs have 4 or 5 people that are elected to those roles. You're you oftentimes they ask you to run because nobody wants to do it. But it's pretty easy to get elected to the HOA, and everybody knows you and you know everybody and they know where you live, and if you do something stupid, they'll come and knock on your door and say, "Hey, that was dumb."
Yeah.
So you as a member of the HOA are highly accountable to your voters because
Uh-huh.
it's really easy to replace you.
Yep.
Then you get to the city government level. The smaller the city, the easier it is to vote out a bad administrator, a
Well,
bad
yeah.
politician. And then it's as the number of people in the constituency grows, it becomes harder and harder to hold the elected official accountable.
Uh-huh.
Okay. So as it becomes harder and harder to hold the elected official accountable, there's more and more opportunity for that elected official to do nefarious stuff like
Yep.
take bribes.
Or use the United States as a personal pocketbook and funnel money through your own properties.
Right. Or anything. And then
Yep.
you get up to the United Nations and there's almost no accountability there because the people that are sent to the United Nations are sent, they're not elected, they're sent by their government. So the only way to affect who goes to the United Nations from the United States is to elect a president who's going to nominate somebody you like to go to the United
Yeah.
Nations. So that's the issue, is keeping the government accountable requires transparency of information and accurate information. So when you're the president of an HOA, everybody knows what you're doing because it affects their household, and there's a newsletter that goes out, there's minutes of the HOA meeting online or whatever, and everybody knows what's going on.
Yep.
Then you get up to, as soon as you get above that, it starts to get a little bit murky about what's going on. Even people don't even know really what their city governments are doing, except that sometimes there's a local newspaper or radio station that will report on what the city council did. And then there's going to be community activists that are going to be interpreting what the city did. But even at that point, you're getting somebody else's opinion about what the city government is doing. So if you rely on an activist to tell you that the city government did X, Y, or Z, they're going to skew the story so that you support their issue.
Just like their opposition would skew the
Do the
story.
same thing, right? So even the first step from HOA up to city government, you're already starting to get a biased look at what the city's doing and its implications. And it just gets worse and worse from there.
Yep.
So, in order for the government to be held accountable, you need an unbiased source of information, which we don't really have above the HOA level, and probably even at the HOA level, some people are, you know,
Correct.
telling tall tales. Yeah, and some of the HOA officers may be taking kickbacks from lawyers and all the people they hire to work for the HOA. So, uh, but it takes an active citizen. It takes somebody who is going to pay attention, is going to trying to interpret what the government decisions mean for them. Potentially run for office if they disagree with those things. So not only do you have to keep in mind what everybody is, research and understand what your elected officials are doing, but then be willing to do something beyond just voting about it. I mean, you can always vote for an alternative, but then you have to trust that some political challenger is going to be somehow different than the person who's already serving. If the choices are bad, stand up. Say, okay, well, if this county commissioner is going to be taking money from, the whatever union or whoever, I'm going to have I'm going to challenge them. I'm going to participate. Uh, so that's one way to keep people accountable, is to participate. But really, the key is find accurate information and don't believe the spin. Because where we are right now in this country is just a function of people not paying attention, not really caring, or believing the spin instead of actually looking up, figuring out what the facts are and having a source for the
Well, the
facts.
problem is that we're on a 24-hour news cycle. And the second someone does something crazy, someone else does something even crazier. And it's stories only last for a day.
And well, I mean, the fact that we have 24-hour news should make the government more accountable.
But it doesn't.
And it doesn't because,
everyone is doing crazy shit.
well, one of the reasons, if you read Manufacturing Consent by Noam Chomsky, one of the things you'll discover is that the federal government figured out a long time ago that if you could control the narrative, you could get away with whatever you want.
Yeah.
They essentially feed the news to the mainstream news media, and the mainstream news media used to be that the mainstream news media would essentially repeat the CIA talking points. They just said, "What the hell? Let's just hire James Clapper to come be a commentator." So now they just bring the CIA guys right on the news and make them commentators. So yeah, that's bad. But the problem is people believe it. People, and they just follow this narrative and they're like, okay, yeah, that sounds right. I agree with that, without doing any of their own research. There's some people that do their own research, and there's also some real journalists that do the research and figure things out. Um, you know,
But it's all
Glenn
entertainment now.
Greenwald, who broke the Edward Snowden story, he's a good example of someone who's actually doing the research and getting real facts, and not just regurgitating the spin that the government wants everybody to believe. So they'll follow along like automatons. We gotten a little bit off the topic of Millenial Rule, though. So we talked about putting people before money.
Yep. Which I don't think will happen anytime soon, but eventually we'll get to a breaking point.
Well, that's always been the rallying cry of the socialist revolutionaries. I mean, Mao Zedong, uh, Trotsky, and Lenin. They all said, people power. You know, put people first. We're going to have this wonderful, glorious, country where the rich and powerful are swept from power, and all of the wonderful wealth of the country is given to the people.
I'm not advocating for that. I'm not saying that we should have this world where everyone is equal, because that's impossible.
Okay.
Everyone cannot be equal. There are, like, I can't build a house. I can try, but it will probably be pretty shitty.
Yeah.
So I don't have those skill set, and the people who can build houses should be rewarded for that,
Okay.
right? I can't do brain surgery. Surgeons should be rewarded for that. But there needs to be a standard of living that everyone is provided. That's the difference.
Provided or can achieve.
Provided. Everyone should have a roof over their head. Everyone should have health care. And everyone should have food.
So, but provided, not achieved or paid for by their own efforts. That's what I'm trying to figure out. When you say food, housing, and
Health care. And education.
education, okay, and all that's provided by the government, so nobody has to pay for it.
Yeah.
Okay, and does everybody get the same? The same housing, the same health care?
At a base level. I'm not saying that, I'm saying that you should still be able to climb. But the problem is that everyone isn't get put on equal ground when they're born. They're not. You are born in. There are people who are born into poverty.
Yeah.
There are many people who are born into poverty, and that should not be a thing. You should not be born with a disadvantage.
Well, is it a disadvantage to be born to parents who aren't as smart as other people? So did you just take babies away from dumb
No,
parents?
no.
So what do you do?
You give everybody a house and an education and food and health care
Right, but you give everybody the same.
at a base level to start. Everyone has at the start.
I don't understand what you mean by at the start.
If you are a homeless person, right? If you're a homeless, uneducated person right now, you should be able to go to City Hall, and City Hall should say, okay, here's a house, here's career training, here's a wardrobe, here's food.
And why City Hall and not the Salvation Army or some other non-government charity?
Because that is relying on that. You are because that what doesn't exist.
The Salvation Army
The
doesn't exist?
I'm not saying the Salvation Army doesn't exist, but that's relying on the generosity of others versus the taxpayer,
Okay.
and it should and that and why are we paying taxes, man? I don't understand it. If we're gonna pay taxes, then the money that we pay should go to helping the world, and it doesn't. It goes to bullets.
Well, part of it does. And
A
you're talking there's a difference
majority of it
between
does.
so when you say pay taxes, uh there's local taxes, there's state taxes, there's federal taxes, county
The biggest chunk of the money goes towards the military because the military is receiving the most amount of money from the taxpayer.
from the federal taxes.
Federal taxes are the biggest tax.
Right. I'm just saying.
So the majority of your tax dollars goes towards bullets.
Okay, so I just want to be crystal clear when you're talking about when you say why do we pay taxes? The answer to that is different for different levels of jurisdiction. You pay your HOA fee because the HOA mows the grass in the park.
It's pennies to dollars, man.
It's still money. So what I just want to be clear that when you say why do we pay taxes, you don't have an argument with HOA fees. You don't have an argument with
No.
state sales tax. You don't have an
No.
argument with. You're just talking about federal taxes.
Yes.
Okay.
Because I understand state and local taxes. If there's a pothole on the road, that needs to get filled.
Right. Okay. So your issue is with federal taxes.
Yes, the large majority of the taxes that come out of paychecks is to the federal government, and that money goes to buying bullets.
Well, it goes to buying drones, which you said you wanted.
And it goes towards the military. It does not need to, but that's it
Well,
would
like you
take a
said-
global effort to shut down the military,
Right.
all the militaries in the world.
Right. And it would also take. This is the vision for the United Nations. It would take a level of cooperation that would keep rogue states like Iran and North Korea and any of these other people from building up their own internal military to exert power over their neighbors.
And in 100 years, when a generation that is raised on the internet has a generation past them, and the internet is like I grew when I was a little kid. We had dial up. There was internet. It was a thing, but it wasn't as prevalent. No one had access like they have now. Everyone has access to information now
And how does everyone have access to the internet?
through cell phones.
And how come everybody has cell phones?
Because of the people in China that are making them. I understand that innately it's still evil. I understand that.
Okay.
But what I'm saying is that in the future, when everyone, that is why these things are happening. That is why more and more people are getting upset. It's because the Zoomers and the millennials were raised on the fact that we could look up any fact that we wanted on our phone. So because of that, I feel like it's making my generation and the people after me are more compassionate and care more.
Interesting. I would think it would have more to do with connections.
Yeah, because we have exposure to the world.
Right.
We're more exposed to other people's mindset and their viewpoints. And eventually, and with the future generations, when it's the norm, I mean, it already is the norm, but when the people who are controlling the power were raised in a compassionate society, I feel like the world will become a better place, and the militaries around the world will eventually, unless the world is completely destroyed, eventually it will get to the point where we will not have a militaries fighting each other. The only sort of military that there will be a united military for facing global threats.
Space Force.
Outside threats. I'm thinking more in line with the Federation and less Space Force, but
okay.
And then even at that level, it will be the same thing where we will have weapons to fight other planets, but then eventually those planets will align, and there will be a universal federation of planets. Hopefully, that's the end goal. The Federation from Star Trek should be the end goal. That's what I want to happen, and I want there to be. Think like if you're hungry, you can go and press a button, and it will synthesize from thin air. So any need that anyone has will be met, and there will be machines where if you're messed up, you'll walk into a machine, it'll scan you, and it'll fix you in like 2 seconds. That's the goal, and that's the goal that we should strive for. We should strive for peace. We should strive for everyone. Like in Star Trek, there were no homeless people. That did not happen.
They didn't make it on camera, but there might have been homeless people.
No, there wasn't. When they visited Earth, there was no. When they went back, when they were in Earth, there was no homeless people. There would not be homeless people because everyone was fit into the right where they fit within the Federation. They were fit into through testing and through education and through, the creatives were creative. The people who were engineers were engineers. The captains were captains.
At what point in the baby's or child's development did they decide what that person was going to be?
I don't know, but you could switch career paths. It's not like you were tied down to that. There were engineers who became captains, and there was doctors who became captains and stuff like that.
All right. Well, we just lost one of our videos, so let's wrap it up. And what would you like to play to wrap up this episode?
I don't know. We're just gonna have to roll the dice again. I don't know what we're gonna put on here, but it'll be a banger because that's all I make.
Okay. All right. Well, we will see you next week.
Adios.
Chance closer.
It's like